then welcome. For those of you that have been with us for some time, welcome back. At Powered by Nyame, there's a question that came up perhaps about a few days ago that I want to tackle in this episode. So, in this episode, the topic will be wickedness. Why does it exist? What's its role and function? How is it allowed to be present in our lives? And what role does Nyame, or the Creator, and the ancestors and other spiritual beings and figures play in this equation called wickedness, otherwise known as evil? So let's jump right into it. I'll start with a story. The story begins like this. A friend of mine's had a spell of very difficult times. I won't go into the details. I don't want to give any hints or clues about who this person might be. But suffice to say, he went through a very rough patch over 3 or 4 years of just things not going well, of things that's awful. And this is a person, to give you a bit of a background, that has a kind heart, is a really cool person, doesn't really pick any trouble or fights with anyone. And you get the idea that this is generally a decent person, a decent human being. But all along, he's been finding himself into these situations with individuals, with spiritual forces that are things just not working out well. And he cannot understand how he could treat others so well and they not reciprocate this treatment. He could not understand why his goodwill, why his big heart, why his charity could not be returned by the very people that he had bust his behind for, including loved ones and family members. Now, what we can deduce from this in terms of the concept of wickedness or evil is this. Often we tend to blame Nyame, or the Creator, for wickedness in the world. And at face value, that wouldn't be wrong or wrong-headed, because if the argument is, well, if this creator and creative force created all things, all beings, plants behind me, animals, you name it, then wickedness is a part of that creation, and therefore Nyame created wickedness. And then the next question you would ask, if Nyame created wickedness, why does it exist? All right? And so here is what I've gathered about this thing called wickedness and why it exists, particularly through the guise of human beings. All right? I'm certain at some point animals can be wicked, but I just don't know for sure, so I can't speak about that. But what I can tell you is this, from what I've gathered over the years, is that wickedness is a necessity, and here's why. You see, wickedness has to exist. If love exists, if joy exists, if exuberance and excitement and all the positive, warm vibes and feelings exist, wickedness has to exist. In this universe in which we exist as human beings, with all the forces and energies and figures around us, through us, behind us, in front of us, we have to have counterbalancing and countervailing forces. In other words, how do we know if something is really bitter? Because we know something is sweet. How do we know something is tart or nasty or disgusting? Because we know something is clean or is sweet or is delicious. We have to have countervailing forces to know what a thing is and what a thing is not. And so wickedness or evil serves the purpose of demarcating or distinguishing the kinds of human beings that live in this world with us, or said differently, the kinds of beings that have a human experience for whom is there as a guardrail, as a reminder, as a safety net to say that we have to exist among the good, decent people to allow the goodness that they have to be clear. In other words, if steel sharpens steel, if wisdom sharpens wisdom, then there has to be a countervailing force to make clear what goodness is, what the big heart that my friend has is, what love, true love, for who you really are, not for what you possess or what you may have or what you may potentially have, but truly naked you stripped of all things in your worldly possessions, that love, In order to know what that love really looks and feels like, tastes like, you have to have hate. You have to have wickedness. And I'm sure the haters are watching this video are probably saying, right on, brother. Gotta have hate. Yes, hate does have a role, right? It's on the spectrum of wickedness, evil, or other synonyms you can think of that exist there. And so wickedness is a part of creation, but it's a necessity part of creation because it's there to clarify. It's there to make clear the guardrails that if we go too far, this is what we look like. If we encourage or if we engender or if we invite just a modicum or large amounts of wickedness, this is what we become. This is what we look like. This is what we imbibe, right? This is what essentially become metastasized within our beings. And so wickedness or evil is a very important ingredient in the overall mix of spiritual beings clothed in human flesh and matter having a human experience. Remember in the previous video of Powered by Nyame, I talked to you all about that being human and having a human experience for a spirit is in fact not a guaranteed opportunity. It is in fact sort of a blessing, which is that not everyone of a spiritual nature has the opportunity to come and live as a human being. But in that human existence, we have what we may call free will. We also have the choices we make and the consequences packaged in those choices. And those choices include human action. In fact, all there is in being humans is human action. There's action in action and there's action in inaction. If I decide to stand up from this chair, that's an act. If I decide to sit down, that's an act. So whether I stand up or sit down, I've made an act. So in action and inaction, there is a choice. There is a consequence to that choice. And that's the arc of being a human being. Our choices, in many ways, shape, not determine, but they shape or influence the path in which we take that is laid out for us, and our deviations from those paths, or return trip to that path, or even, off ramp from that path, hopefully at some point to get back on that highway. Either way, along the way, we have to encounter wickedness. We do. The same way that our bodies have to encounter disease and illnesses. Think of it this way. When I say it, I mean wickedness and evil. The same way that our bodies have to encounter disease and illness from when we come out of the mother's womb up until we find that a number is called and we go to the village. Disease and illnesses actually help our immune system become what it is. In other words, our bodies have to know illness, have to know disease. The same way that our beings have to know wickedness, has to know evil. And what our bodies do, it uses that illness or that disease or that pathogen or that microorganism that is the carrier or vector for those diseases, to strengthen the immune system, to make us stronger, to make us more resilient. And as the sunshine that's coming in and out of this recording, the same is true for wickedness. It comes in and out of our lives because there are carriers. There are human beings, just like the microorganisms, that carry wickedness and evil in them to clarify for us who we really are, what we're about, and who we're not. And sometimes that wickedness and evil, just like the disease, overwhelms us. So we have to seek what? Spiritual, other kinds of therapeutic remedies, or some type of self-healing therapy, or other kinds of intervention to get us back on track. And so the same way that a microorganism carries a virus or a bacteria or a germ, likewise, we human beings are carriers or potential carriers of wickedness and evil to a small or large degree, and we can infect other people, including the ones that we claim we love. And sometimes we may not be fully aware how much wicked and evilness we have in front of us. But those around us can pick it up because it bleeds through our act, our intentions, which carry out through our actions, whether inaction or action, right? And this is how we can measure or gauge the wickedness or evil that we find around us. And what to do about this? Don't blame Nyame, because what Nyame has provided us is the gift of human life and therefore human experience and of choices, of human action, right? Now, yes, Nyame is there always present, and the ancestors are always present, particularly the ones that are there to guide and help us rather than distract us. Spiritual forces are there, especially ones that are there to guide and keep us on the path rather than take us off that path into a realm which we don't want to go. All of these forces and figures are there as part of that broadcast member to help us navigate this human experience. So we need a modicum of wickedness and evil around us. I'm not saying we have to have it all the time, but we need to be reminded that it's a necessity to have around us. And if you see from that perspective, you see that, well, those who are the carriers of this evil and wickedness, they actually help to make clear, are you with that team or are you not? And if you're not with that team, then there are ways in which to safeguard yourself. There are ways in which for you to pick up and say, hey, I'm not about that. I want nothing to do with that. So someone of that nature, wickedness and evil nature, is cursing you or is bad-mouthing you or is doing things that you don't appreciate, that is harmful and like, protect yourself. Defend yourself. Create healthy and wholesome distance from that person or those persons, right? And use the forces that are with you, ancestral and otherwise, including Nyame, to safeguard you. So if you like my friend that has a big heart and can't understand why this wickedness and evil is as compounded, raining upon him when he's such a really good person, this episode may help to clarify that phenomena in him and hopefully in you. For Powered by Ancestry, my apologies. For Powered by Nyame, I'm getting used to it, as so some of you are. For Powered by Nyame, I've been your guide and host, Kwesi Kunadu. Please leave your comments and questions in the section below. Until next time, stay well.